So one of the things we talk about when we're beginners at meditation, and everybody, complains about this, is that their brain is so busy. The brain is so busy. And of course, it gets busy with its whole day, and then it comes here, and we hear this all the time here, where they come into the center, and it's easy to get quieter here, and then you go back into your real life, and it's not so easy every day in real life. And then of course we hear that the brain is so busy that it doesn't know how to calm down, and so the meditation practice, which is to teach the brain to calm down and to slow down and to reduce the number of brain waves per second that it's acting on, doesn't seem to get that it takes practice to get into that zone where the brain gets quiet enough. In fact, everybody gets so tired that it takes so long, and the brain is always so impatient and in such a hurry that the meditation practice is perceived as a negative or difficult thing. So when I look at all of these and I listen to these complaints, and I think, it's so hard now to teach the brain patience with the practice of meditation. And this is possibly the largest stumbling block in any arena of the spiritual life, that it takes practice, that everything takes practice, including meditation. And one of the things that sabotages practice and keeps the brain so busy is that it is addicted to being busy. There are so many reasons for this. If it is busy, it is deemed worthwhile. If it is busy, it is deemed purposeful. Even if it's unproductive, it is purposeful to be busy. Busy is a wonderful excuse to stay out of things when you want to avoid them. And of course, it's become a bit of an ego trip. I'm so busy, meaning through assumption, I'm so productive, I'm so rich, I'm so successful, I'm so popular. It goes with all of these I am ego statements. So people have tuned in to being busy. And when I look at the structure of our busyness, I realize that there has been a shift in the way humanity thinks. Over time, there has been this so-called evolution in our thinking capacity and the way we've been taught to think. So when my generation came into the world, people were being taught to multitask. And then, of course, by the time we got through to ADD and ADHD children, we were being told that multitasking is bad. You mustn't do it anymore. We need a paradigm shift out of multitasking. And people like Tony Buzan and Carl Jung and even Freud, all of these cognitive psychoanalysts, have spoken about how we create techniques of thinking that actually go against the grain, that go against our natural innate systems that want to think or want to explore and experiment consciously with what is going on. So our paradigm in terms of multitasking, in order to get more done, to achieve more, to be more successful, to beat everybody else and stay ahead of the pack, that whole system of multitasking did in fact lead to fragmentation, because it became such a norm with too many assumptions and not enough understanding around why multitasking can actually work for you. And then of course when they told us it's all wrong, they didn't tell us what you should be doing instead. So now when they say to people, no, multitasking is wrong, we go to the other extreme and we think we must do one thing at a time, and that until that thing is finished, we shouldn't leave it. And of course, we all get so busy procrastinating on that one thing that nothing else gets done. And until that one thing is done, we're kind of stuck. So this human tendency to go to one extreme to the other and to not balance in around the issue itself. So right at the very beginning, when they created multitasking, the question was, what are you working on? What is it that you ultimately choose to achieve with this work? Where are you going with this? And the requirement of multitasking is exactly like the requirement for meditation. That one must know that there is a focus in the work, and two, that one sets clear foundations in order to go off in different directions, and as we say in the digital or technological world these days, be able to follow different threads in order to connect them into fulfilling a variety of tasks which are ultimately connected to the foundation and the perceived or expected outcome, meaning one task. So actually multitasking began as a way of looking at one issue holistically or managing it from a variety of angles and perspectives, but it's still only one outcome, one task. Multitasking was never intended to be, I play the piano and cook dinner and bath the dog simultaneously. Yes. It was not intended to be the system by which everybody proves that they're superhuman and can do 20 things at once, regardless of the quality of the doing or the attitude from which they're doing it. In addition, one key factor that has been missing from everybody's understanding of multitasking is the ability or the need to stop, to let things complete themselves, become something, give you feedback before you continue, before you go to some other part of it. In other words, to stop, to let something respond to you before you continue. In our days of instant gratification and our need for the quick fix and the quick job, multitasking has become a way of dashing into things and sorting it out from this angle and sorting it out from that angle and never stopping. And in fact, multitasking has given us a way of never coming into a state of rest, because it is the understanding that when one aspect or one job or one part of your to-do list is complete, you should already have at least 5 or 6 others lined up to take its place. In other words, the brain must operate like an assembly line system in which it's one task after the other, which invites tunnel vision as opposed to holistic view of things, and we must be able to look down 30 different tunnels simultaneously if you're going to multitask. Now, this being spiritual, which is admittedly hard work and fabulously easy at times, requires multitasking. It requires that one be able to listen inside and outside simultaneously. It requires being grounded and raising your vibration simultaneously. It requires being able to go quietly into your own zone and still be more aware outside simultaneously. It requires holding both the ends of the pendulum in a balanced space at zero simultaneously. This is multitasking at its best. And that's what meditation teaches us. Meditation teaches us that actually the art of multitasking is that I start with a focus, and that from that focus I can go everywhere into the task. I can do 5 or 6 different things associated with that task and still realize that outcome, because the focus from the beginning to the end is exactly like having an energetic spine that goes from the Earth Star chakra to the Soul Star chakra, focusing the upward flow of the energy while keeping you grounded, bringing you into a space where your own energy can shift and change with new energy flowing into it, but remaining stable, remaining present, remaining in a zone while interacting with everything outside of you. So the art of multitasking comes naturally to either soul. It comes naturally to all of the spiritual tools with which we are born, to all of our chakras. They are always multitasking. They are always communicating in a variety of directions simultaneously, supporting other chakras in a variety of directions and flows simultaneously, and contributing to a whole while still maintaining their innate individual function in that context. Our bodies are doing it all the time. Our physical bodies are multitasking all the time. While the heart is doing its thing, it is not doing its thing oblivious to its connection to everything else. Its consciousness, its mind, is keeping it in connection with everything else. It speeds up when the rest of the physical body is under pressure, when there is an emotional reaction in the world, when it falls in love, when there is anxiety. It responds, it replies, it reciprocates, it participates. So there is nothing that is going on with us that actually keeps us in a tunnel space. It keeps us actually, our innate systems keep us in a context, keep us multitasking from a variety of perspectives for the highest good or the greatest good of everything connected to it, everything involved, which is exactly what we say in terms of for the highest good of all parties concerned, in accordance with spiritual law. This is multitasking at its best. So when we come to meditation and I say to you, get grounded, and of course we are required to stay grounded the whole way through meditation, and at the end of the meditation I remind you to get grounded once more. Maintaining that foundation, maintaining the being grounded is the first layer of the task. The second layer of the task is to harmonize your breathing to the being grounded, to get calm, to get quiet, to get relaxed. And of course that's so many different things in just the next level of the task. Allowing your physical body to relax, allowing all of the tension to seep out of different parts, for your physical body posture to go into a space of rest is a whole other level of the same relaxation connected to the breathing and connected to the being grounded. And yet, consciously, mindfully, you are actually now doing three different things. You are multitasking, but all in the direction of one focus, all in the direction of the greater good of your entire auric field, 12 bodies and 308 chakras. That the brain will resist because it doesn't want to rest or thinks it's a waste of time, and you then have to resist that resistance and get past it, is another part of the task. And of course we face this in all of our tasks in the world. Just we're thinking things are going right, something goes horribly wrong, and then we have to deal with somebody's complication or resistance, and then we have to come back to where we were and what we were doing. That is the nature of multitasking with the focus. Not just multitasking in terms of doing several things at once. Now, this accumulation of energy that says, I'm focused on that and I'm taking care of different things simultaneously, that accumulation of energy lends itself to raising your own vibration, raising your own consciousness layer by layer by layer, so that it gets easier and easier to meet that vibration in which you are officially in the zone. So that it gets easier and easier for your brain's pace to lower, to go from 100% to 95 to possibly 85, and at its best 75%, so that we're in a nice quiet zone of mindful, aware but not alert, not in defense mechanism mode, not in survival mode. So as we bring your brain's cycles down and we raise your frequency, your own energy up, we create that sacred space within you that is called your zone. Absolutely your zone. And for everybody it's different. But getting there is again the act of multitasking, of doing all of those things simultaneously. And of course, while we're busy doing that, I'm saying, in your mind's eye, please can you picture, well, sometimes I don't say please, we want you to imagine or sense or feel And now it's added a whole new task that is actually taking you into a space where you are using your consciousness differently. And again, with a focus. The reason it works so well with meditation is because everybody sits down and you know that that focus exists. That the focus of meditation is to get focused. That the focus of meditation is to get relaxed, to practice, to get quiet. So for everybody, we know that that's the focus. And we keep going there, we keep going there, we keep going there. Everything we learn in every class, same focus, keep going there. Every practice, same focus, keep going there. So we can multitask around this focus as much as we like because there is a focus. So everything and anything that we are doing in our lives, especially in the modern world, has a thread. You send an email, they hit a reply, there's a thread already. I mean, that thread turns into, what do they call it? A conversation first and then a thread. You know, you comment to something on Facebook, there's a thread. There's always the more information, the continuity. And of course, we get sucked into a whole range of things happening simultaneously and having to keep track of them all separately, all differently. 30 people in one email, all responding, all replying. And it can be very fragmenting. In fact, it is fragmenting and stressful for the brain, because the brain doesn't automatically go into a meditative understanding of managing the thread, or of managing each of those things that's coming at you around the common focus or the common intention, which is how things actually get complicated. One of the things, I mean, an example of this is I get emails from the insurance company. So I'm having one conversation with this group of people, and suddenly there's a whole new conversation happening with half this group of people and some other people, and they've completely lost the focus of the first conversation. Now I could get really confused. So my job, in terms of making sure that I can manage both sets of people, is to bring them back to the focus, to create a common focus between the two. Otherwise, I'm having two different conversations and I'm going to wind up with two different houses, which would be really disastrous. Or the insurance work is going to be done in someplace else, in some other country even. So I actually have to keep refocusing things on the facts, refocusing things on what is true, what is accurate, what is known as opposed to what is unknown, what is present as opposed to all of the things we are speculating about. And just in daily life, just in terms of multitasking in daily life, when I keep that as my focus, to bring everything back to what is true, what is now, what is sensible, what is the focus here, then it tends to cut out a whole lot of stuff that is very agitating and worrisome and tedious and irrelevant, completely irrelevant in the long term. So this capacity to multitask, we have to start looking at it as a spiritual resource, because it is. Spirit doesn't operate in a time and space, three-dimensional or five-dimensional way. They operate with no containers, no boundaries, no physical environment to create limitations, and most importantly, no physical body to create limitations. So multitasking is the most natural thing of soul. To be in 5 places at once is the most natural thing for every soul. To be able to listen to a whole bunch of people praying simultaneously, for that sound to reach spirit from all over the world simultaneously, is the most natural thing in the world. For angels to be able to see an entire continent at once, as opposed to just one person in one village or city or one road, is the most natural thing in the world. So multitasking is our spiritual heritage, it's our spiritual resource. But when the multitasking is focused on doing several things at once, as opposed to being one thing and doing the things connected to that, we get confused. So I'm hoping we've managed to set the record straight on why multitasking is actually a good thing. For the brain specifically that cannot rest and gets so busy, the understanding that it is focused is enough to give it a greater sense of security in terms of it hasn't forgotten all of those other things, and it can actually remain in one place. It can feel productive even if it has to get 5 different things around one project complete. And if you don't have a project that has 5 things, well, bless you. Thank God. Hallelujah. But most of the things in the world today go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and every one of those things will have additional things. We live in a more complicated world, where technology has made the world more complicated instead of easier. So our capacity to deal with several things and to have the skills to manage those things actually does come to us naturally. Our fear will get in the way. Our insecurity will get in the way. And of course, the brain's resistance to approaching practical tasks from a meditative or spiritual stance will get in the way. But a simple thing like getting grounded before you have to answer or work with any particular task is one way to invoke that spiritual resource and put it to good use. Another way to put it to good use is to actually do what we did with the Thursday group, return to self. Bring yourself back from whatever other work you were doing, stretch, breathe, give yourself some room to just flap your wings a little, and then get grounded. Consciously bring yourself to this task and leave the other one completely behind. Now imagine for a moment that your brain, as it travels through the day, is picking up all of this information and work and reminders and doing this and conversations there and dialogue here. And as it moves into the next thing that it needs to do, whether it's driving the car or cooking supper or answering an email or feeding the dog, and the next thing it has to do and the next thing it has to do, it is bringing everything from today and God only knows how many days before with it. There is never a moment in which we put this aside and leave it there, knowing full well that it will be there later. Nothing that is troublesome ever just dissipates out the universe like magic. Well, not to our brain anyway. So what we know for certain is that it will be there. But to detach from it sufficiently to get fully present with this, to get fully focused on this. So the brain itself is not now leaking your energy to those 3 or 4 or 5 other things and conversations. I mean, an entire telephone conversation can play in your mind while you're fulfilling a task, while you're cooking, while you're making coffee, while you're driving. All sorts of other distractions, 3 or 4 or 5 simultaneously happening in your mind while you're doing what you're doing, which is a whole other way of being busy and unproductive, multitasking, but actually not doing anything, not getting anything done. And from instant gratification, we live in a world where there is this understanding that if I send you a message now, I will get a reply. So there are very few people who will send a message saying, shall we do this or that or the other, or can I have this and can I have that and can I go here or can we manage that, with leeway. They fully expect that they're going to get a response, and I'm just as impatient as everybody else. Like I've asked a question, where's my answer? As if everybody is trained to answer that phone as a priority task to everything else. Now when you're at school, for example, you have to put your phone off and go to teach, right? So everybody knows in terms of your profession, there are going to be times where you're just not accessible. And then of course, we know when doctors are in theatre, they should be inaccessible too. But they're not. Isn't that so? Everybody. I mean, the lady at the cashier at Checkers today is checking her messages whilst zimming my purchases through. The fact that she's doing the same one twice or thrice and I've only purchased 2 is beyond me. Because she's busy reading her messages. And I look at this and I see this is what multitasking does. And yet it is the wrong understanding of multitasking. It is not in the least bit multitasking. It is just good old-fashioned fragmentation. Our need to know keeps us fragmented too. We cannot bear to let the world pass by without knowing what the heck is going on in it. And then we cannot let the world pass by without then informing everybody else we know that we know. And we see this on social media. I mean, Twitter has a meltdown ever so often, right? And they call it a meltdown because it's this massive tantrum that everybody is throwing simultaneously. And when I look at it in the mass consciousness, it looks like a big fat baby throwing all of its toys out the cart, like every couple of hours. This is how ridiculous it is. And yet this is the mass consciousness that we are living with, that we are having to be awake about in terms of, are we doing that same thing inside? Are we having a hissy fit inside? Are we throwing out our toys inside? Because we are so busy and so fragmented and so stressed and so not rested. We've tried doing a rest meditation in the center, and 2/3 of the people, if not more than 2/3 of the people who were in that meditation had difficulty resting. And today on Facebook there was a lovely meme that said depressed and deep rest. And it made complete sense to me when I saw it. Instinctively it made sense to me that somebody would be depressed if they were not getting the kind of deep rest that they require. You'll get the word pun, right? Okay. So even if you write it down, that's exactly how it sounds. Depressed or deep rest. I would much rather we all learned how to rest deeply. So today's meditation is a technique for bringing yourself to yourself in order to rest deeply. If you fall off to sleep during this meditation, that's quite okay. If you snore, that's okay. Just do the meditation again when you are wider awake in order to learn the technique to practice it for yourself.